All right, let me ask you something. Have you ever gotten to the end of the day, looked back, and realized you were busy, but you weren't actually productive? If that sounds familiar, then you're in the right place. We're about to break down a legendary framework for absolutely destroying procrastination, and it comes from Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog. This isn't about working more hours. It's about working on the things that really truly matter. So let's get into it.
So does this feel a little too real? You are just swamped all day long. You're hopping between meetings, answering emails, your calendar looks like a game of Tetris, but then you finally power down your computer and you get that sinking feeling. The most important things on your to-do list, still there, untouched. It is such a frustrating feeling, isn't it?
And that feeling, well, it just snowballs, right? It turns into this nasty, vicious cycle. You start the week with big goals, but then life happens, you don't quite get to them, and then, boom, the guilt trip begins. That just chips away at your confidence, which of course makes it even harder to get started the next day. And the whole thing just repeats itself.
So you have to ask, what is really going on here? Why do we get stuck in this loop? I'll tell you this much, it's not a personal failing. You're not lazy, it's a systems failure. So let's dig in and find the real root cause of this whole procrastination cycle. And here it is. Brian Tracy absolutely hits the nail on the head. You know, the number one enemy of getting things done isn't laziness, it's a lack of clarity. When your brain isn't totally 100% sure what it's supposed to do next or why it's even important, it's naturally going to drift towards the easier stuff, the more comfortable stuff. That vagueness, that is the fuel that powers procrastination.
Okay, so if vagueness is the problem, how do we fight back? How do we finally break out of the cycle? Well, the solution starts with a simple, maybe a little bit gross, but an incredibly powerful metaphor. You've got to eat a frog.
This whole philosophy comes from this classic, brilliant line from Mark Twain. And the idea is just so simple. You find your biggest, your ugliest, your most intimidating task, and you do it first thing in the morning. You get that done, and hey, the rest of the day, it's going to feel like a cakewalk. So the really important question becomes, what exactly is your frog?
So in this system, your frog is that single most important task on your plate. It's that one thing that if you actually do it, will have the biggest, most positive impact on your goals. You know, for a musician, it might be writing that difficult chorus. For a manager, it's having that tough conversation they've been putting off. And you know what? It's almost always the task you are most tempted to avoid. And this whole thing comes with two very simple but totally critical rules. Rule number one. If you have a couple of really important tasks, you have to do the biggest, hardest, ugliest one first. No exceptions. And rule number two, and this one is huge, once you've decided which frog to eat, you just do it. You don't circle it, you don't overthink it, you don't go get another cup of coffee, you just start.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. That sounds great, but my entire to-do list feels like one giant ugly frog. When everything feels urgent, how in the world do you actually pick the right one? So let's get practical with two really powerful tools for prioritizing.
First up is a classic, the Pareto principle, but you probably know it as the 80-20 rule, and it's kind of a universal law of the universe. It basically says that a tiny fraction of what you do, we're talking about 20% of your activities, is going to generate a whopping 80% of your results. Your true frog, it's always hiding in that critical 20%. Your job is to find it. And what this really means is you have to learn to fight that powerful, seductive urge to do what's called productive procrastination. You know, clearing out your inbox, organizing your desktop, the little things. They feel good. They give you a quick hit of accomplishment, but they are a trap. They're the 80% of tasks that give you minimal results. The real wins, the big rewards, they're always in the hard stuff. Okay, tool number two is the ABCD method. This is all about bringing ruthless clarity to that long to-do list. You just go down the list and label everything. A tasks are your frogs. They're vital and there are serious consequences if you don't do them. B tasks are your tadpoles. Yeah, they should get done, but the consequences are mild. C's are just nice to do. D's you should delegate, and E's you should just eliminate them completely. And here is the one unbreakable rule that makes this whole system work. You never, and I mean never, work on a B task if you have an A task that's still left undone. And if you have a few A tasks, you just rank them, A1, A2, A3, and you start your day, no matter what, by eating that A1 frog. This single discipline, I promise you, will completely transform your productivity. Okay, so now you've got a system for finding your frog. You've identified it, it's sitting there on your list labeled A1.
But what happens when that frog is so huge, so intimidating, that you just don't even know where to start? Let's move from planning to actually doing.
Oh man, we have all been here. That feeling of total paralysis. You know what your A1 task is. Maybe it's writing that business plan, or starting to study for a huge exam. And it feels so monumental that your brain just kind of short circuits. This right here, this is where overwhelm turns into procrastination.
So to combat that feeling, you can use two simple little mind tricks. The salami slice method is where you break that massive task down into super thin individual steps. The Swiss cheese method is where you just decide to work on it for a tiny amount of time, say 5 or 10 minutes, just to punch a hole in it. Look, the goal isn't to finish, it's just to start. It's to break that inertia. Let's zoom in on the salami slice method for a second. First, you take a minute and map out every single little action you need to take. Then you put them in order. Now here's where the magic happens. You commit to doing only the very first step. That's it. The psychological power here is just immense. When you complete that one tiny slice, you get a little win. Your brain releases some dopamine, and that builds momentum that just pulls you into the next slice.
All right, so we've identified the frog, we have strategies to take that first bite, but how do you see it all the way through to the end? The final piece of this whole puzzle is creating an environment where this becomes a powerful, unbreakable habit.
Get ready for this number because it is absolutely wild. Every time you start a task, get distracted, and then have to come back to it, you pay a mental tax. Your brain has to completely reload the context, and that friction, that can increase the total time it takes to finish the job by as much as 500%. That's why single-minded focus, just working on your frog until it's done, is the ultimate productivity superpower.
So let's wrap this all up into your new anti-procrastination toolkit. First, get crystal clear on your goals. Remember, vague goals lead to vague action. Second, use the 80-20 rule and the ABCDE method to hunt down your A1 frog. Third, if it feels too big, just make it smaller. Take one salami slice or one 5-minute Swiss cheese bite. And finally, the golden rule of it all. Eat that frog first before you do anything else.
So I'm going to leave you with a direct challenge. I want you to think right now, what is the one task, the one frog, that you know would have the biggest positive impact on your life or your work? Go ahead, name it. And more importantly, are you going to commit to eating that frog first thing tomorrow morning?